In this video, I'll talk about why smart men get friend-zoned way more than the average guy. So we've all seen the movies with guys with massive glasses, getting good grades, and then getting friend-zoned by women. And what is interesting is that these guys get friend-zoned not because they have glasses or they look bad. Actually, as a matter of fact, a lot of smart men nowadays, they're pretty good looking. They take care of themselves, they look good, they have good fashion, and still somehow they get friend-zoned and they don't get the girls that they want to be getting. Now, there are actual inherent traits and inherent biases, 4 biases, which I'm going to talk about in this video, that make smart men good in their job and careers, but they make them terrible lovers. And we'll take a look at what those are. And the reason that this hits close to my chest is, first of all, I've coached many smart, logical students, as you've seen on my channel. But second, if you don't know, I actually went to a UK university to study engineering. So by education, I'm an engineer. So I'm in the same buckets. I saw how our training, they were training us for disaster when it comes to dating. Maybe the training was good for the job, but it wasn't good for the dating life. And also, as a bonus, I have a free flirting guide for logical men, which you can download complete for free below if you're a smart, logical man. I wrote this guide, it's been viewed by thousands and thousands of men, has helped a lot of men improve their communication and flirting with women. So if you're interested in that, also feel free to check out the flirting guide below. Now, let's go and cover these 4 different biases. So the first bias is what I call the cognitive load bias. What does that mean? So in university, well, I studied engineering, we needed to solve a lot of complex problems. And the way we were taught to do the solving high complex problems was almost like a GPU at a computer. So this circle here, it represents a lot of mental cognitive load. So you're at the piece of paper, you're trying to draw or analyze different stuff, and you put a lot of cognitive load. And then from this cognitive load, you get to an answer. So far so good. Now the problem is when you try to do the same thing in dating, so you put this high cognitive load, you try to map things out and you try to almost find that secret answer on how to get that girl. And you try all that, you try to optimize all this, and then you get an error. So in reality or in the dating terms, you don't get the girl. And that's a massive problem. That's a massive problem for a lot of guys because they've been literally trying to do this. That's what they also do a lot of times in their job, is just super analytical. So imagine that instead of doing this in your university or when you're solving a problem, imagine in university, someone gave you a problem, it's a very complex problem, and instead of analyzing and doing different equations, you just did no thinking. You just said that the answer is 5, and whether or not the answer would truly be 5 wouldn't actually be determined by the problem. It would be determined by how confident you were in that answer. Now, sounds a bit ridiculous, right? Like you would never work in a university or even a job setting, right? The answer is the answer, right? Like there must be a definite answer. But as ridiculous as it sounds, in dating, that's how it works. So, for example, when you are thinking of the perfect thing to say or the perfect thing to do right now, there's no clear, definite answer of what is the best thing to say at that moment. But what will determine if it's a good or better or worse thing to say is your confidence, your conviction in doing that. So the answer is actually no thinking, you just say something, and because you're so convinced in what you're saying, you have such a conviction, that will be the answer. So it's a huge mindset shift of how you have to start thinking your kind of on-the-job training or university training versus training in dating. You have to say the answer without thinking. It's ridiculous, right? Like that's why a lot of guys, they struggle. Like, what do you mean I just have to say things? You just have to say things. That's how it is. You're not thinking. That's the whole point. And for a lot of guys, it's just a massive, they cannot get this, they cannot fathom this, but that's how it works. I'm not who invented these things, right? I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, that's how it works. That's how you get success and generate traction when you talk to women. And yeah, as I said, in science it's ridiculous, but not in dating, and ultimately, emotions are more important than the facts. Emotions are more important than the facts. So forget the facts, forget the right answer, forget that there even is the right answer. You can make up your own right answer if you can generate the right emotions. How about that? Okay, so the second bias that smart men have, why they get friend zoned a lot, is preparation bias. So again, uni story, right? Like whenever we needed to write a paper, they would encourage us to make a massive plan. They would encourage us to make a draft, and sometimes even before handing in the final paper, we would have to hand in the draft of the paper. So we would get graded sometimes twice, on the draft, on the outline, and then on the actual paper. So the same guys then, they try to do the same thing and do massive preparations, get in really good shape, buy really good clothes, do public speaking courses, whatever. And then they still haven't taken actual action to go speak to a girl, because that's how I've been trained to do, right? They kind of overanalyze, okay, step 1, I'm gonna do this, step 2, I'm gonna do this, step 3, I'm gonna do this. But that's not, well, guess the results. And that's, again, why a lot of guys are stuck. And a lot of guys are trained to look for known outcomes before acting, right? That's what they teach in university. You gotta map out the outcomes. But when you try to do the same thing in dating, you are cautious, because you are literally, okay, is this the right thing? Is this not the right thing? You're cautious, and cautious turns into timid behavior. And when you're timid around women, no matter what movies say, whatever modern culture says, when you're timid, it kills the magic. It absolutely kills the magic. So what is the reverse then? Again, let's take a uni example. So what would be a good thing to do if we're talking about, let's say, writing a paper? So instead of actually outlining and thinking about the outline and the draft, you literally just start writing something on the piece of paper, and you keep writing. No planning, nothing. Completely spontaneous. Just write things down. Just write things down. Again, maybe not the best paper in university, maybe not the best grade, but in dating, that's how it works. So that's how you overcome this bias. You don't prepare all this crazy stuff. You don't plan things. You put on your shirt, you put on your boots, you go where there are women that you can talk to, and you go talk to them. That's it. That's it. Next one, number 3, intellectual bias. So in university, when I was studying engineering, you're taught to break things down. And even when they teach you different formulas and hypotheses, they have different variables. So alpha, beta, I don't even remember, I think it was theta. So they have different variables to describe things, and then you're taught to analyze, okay, how does this change when I increase alpha? How does this change when I decrease beta? How can we cancel out the variables? And you try to study the relationship between alpha, between beta, between the final values. And guys then translate the same behavior into dating. So the way it looks like in dating, there's some situation going on with the girl, and the guys start asking, okay, she moved her hand. What does that mean? She's not answering me for 24 hours. How should I respond to this particular behavior? How my behavior will affect her behavior? And they try to kind of start doing the same thing as they did in university, trying to optimize different variables. But you can't do that, my man. You cannot optimize variables. This is not the place to optimize variables. And I'm gonna tell you something super, super important. And I want you to remember this forever when it comes to your dating life. You don't change outcomes in dating by changing variables. You are the only variable. This is super important. That's why I'm pausing this. There are no variables here. You, my friend, you are the only variable. You are the only variable. What does that mean? If you want the girl, for example, to be confident and relaxed. So for example, if you want the girl to act confident and relaxed, how are you going to get her to do that? The easiest way, and really the only way, is you gotta act confident and relaxed. You are the variable. So change your energy, change your emotions, and act like that, and then she will start acting like that. You are the only variable. So start looking for random variables in different dating social situations. Finally, the bias number 4, why smart men get friend zoned more than average guys, is reputation bias. So I went to UK University, and the way we were graded was essentially you could get first what I think it would be something like 70% or more, 2.1, which I think was 60%, 2.2, 50%. And essentially you would get graded, and most people would have a massive fear of not getting the first, or only getting the second, or getting like the third, or 2-2. And because of it, they had a big fear of looking stupid as well, because you now have to uphold your reputation. You cannot make mistakes. And this is actually pretty broad in education, that they encourage you not to make mistakes, and kind of like if you do something stupid, if you make a mistake, then you get punished. But the problem is that once you are afraid of making mistakes or looking stupid, you have the same problem as we looked at before, is that you start to be very, very cautious. And you start to be very rigid and stiff, right? And that's why you see a lot of guys with a drink in their hand in some kind of bar, and then just like, I don't know, like, can I go? Can I not go? Oh shit, like, she's there. Okay, let me go with my drink. Okay, it doesn't look good. And women love guys with two things: freedom of expression and no displayed fear. In this example, freedom of expression, all that means is that you want to do something, you go and do it. So rather than just being with a drink in your hand, you see a girl, you're just like, hey, what's up, right? Like, you go immediately, hey, what's up? You're not stifled. You just go immediately. And that's the freedom of expression. And no displayed fear, it's a similar way. It doesn't mean that you cannot have any fear, but you're not displaying it, right? Like, you're dealing with it in other ways. So you have fear to talk to a girl, but you still go. You don't let that stifle you. And this is what women love. They love a man who has freedom of expression and no displayed fear. When you're being free, and when I say free, is like free of your own reputation, because your own reputation can be your own worst enemy, because now you're like, oh, well, I gotta act smart, or I gotta do this. Then a lot of times girl has a lot of pressure. Well, I guess now he's being very serious and, you know, like talking about his job and everything, and he's being perfect. Now I have to be perfect too. It's not going to lead to authentic connections, and you're going to be very tense, she's going to be very tense, and it's not going to be authentic. But when you're being free, when you just say, fuck you, yeah, like, this is me, you're not afraid to say something stupid, you're not afraid to look stupid, then she can be free as well, and then it's going to make for a much more authentic relationships and connections. So you got to let go of your reputation, and essentially you got to release status, right? And it's funny because you don't normally think of nerdy guys or the logical guys as status-driven people, because they don't usually wear flashy clothes, or they don't let status affect their lives in a materialistic way. Sometimes they do, though. Sometimes they do. But where they get status or reputation affect their lives is with their own intellectual status. And you gotta let go of that status, man. You gotta let go of that status, because it is hurting you. It is hurting you to express yourself freely. It is hurting you to create authentic connections. And you got to let go of that. And rather than having a fear of looking stupid, you have to have fear of looking stiff. So it's not looking stupid that will get you. If you look stupid and if you deal with it, that's actually even better. Then you can show the girl that you're okay with potential embarrassment, and that increases your status. But where you're gonna fuck up is if you look stiff, if you look stifled. And if you try to uphold your grand reputation as this super smart guy, then you will look stiff. So you also sort of kind of drop this identity of, oh, I'm this like super smart guy that always has the right answers. You gotta drop it. You gotta drop it with women, because it will not play in your advantage. Okay, so we looked at 4 different biases of why a lot of smart, logical men don't get success in dating. They try to apply the same cognitive problem solving that they have in university and job in their dating, which is not good. They over prepare, they over intellectualize by trying to break things down and analyze things, and their own reputation and status is hurting them. If you can learn to reverse these, then it's going to be amazing for your dating life. And also, as an action step, the biggest thing that most logical, smart guys don't have is playful communication. They're way too logical in their communication. So if you want to start changing your communication style and go from super serious to playful, from logical to emotional, then download my flirting guide below. It's completely for free. Do yourself a service and read it, because again, as I said, it's been viewed by thousands and thousands of men. It's gotten a lot of different positive feedback. In that guide, I reveal different flirting techniques. I go over the flirting in general. I essentially teach you everything you need to know from flirting from A to Z. I even show you real life examples of me applying those techniques in real life as an ex-logical guy. I mean, I guess I'm still a logical guy. So go download that below and study that like it's your Bible.